Welcome back to the I'm Passionate podcast. I hope you're all doing well. I'm doing this sort of last minute because at the time of this recording, it is Thursday, an hour before the Cowboys versus Giants game. But I just wanted to, get my predictions, get my episode out before kickoff. But really, before diving into more NFL, earlier today, Derrick Rose, the NBA player, had retired, and man, yes, I'm way more into the NFL than I am into basketball, but one of my first basketball memories specifically, because I wasn't the biggest basketball fan early in Derrick Rose's career. I pretty much grew to appreciate basketball around 2015. So seeing, Derrick Rose hit that shot when he was on the Bulls against LeBron James, that series, that's probably one of my first memories. Like, yes, I have memories of LeBron being on the Heat, going up against the Spurs. But, Derrick Rose, man, one of my favorite NBA players, had a great career. But to transition, I want to talk about, week 2, talk about some of my predictions because on the week, I was 8-7. The Jets and Patriots, that one was pretty obvious. I had picked the Jets. Eagles and Saints, I picked the Saints. I was not expecting really a defensive game like that. But, it was still a great game, even though I didn't pick right. Giants versus Browns. I remember last week I picked the Browns so quickly, and man, was I wrong. Broncos versus Bucks. I picked the Bucks. I was also wrong for that game. And also, I saw a TikTok, I believe Alex Singleton, the linebacker for the Broncos, he had tore his ACL in the first quarter and had managed to stay in for every defensive snap. That is insane. Yes, I played football for a large portion of my life, but I've never been seriously injured. But the mental toughness that it takes to play through a torn ACL, I understand. He was probably filled with a ton of adrenaline, even if it is just a regular season game, but that is insane. Packers versus Titans, I picked the Packers because I didn't think the Titans would put together a whole game. Malik Willis played well. Bears versus Colts, I had picked the Bears. I feel like Caleb Williams did not look bad in the game. You can see, if you're looking closely enough, that Caleb Williams is going through his reads. I feel like he's trying to make the big play a little too much, and I feel like a lot of his mistakes are just rookie mistakes. And I feel like, from what I get to see online or through other Bears fans I feel like they don't acknowledge the fact that he's a rookie. It was his third game. The fact that he's making rookie mistakes, it's kind of a good thing. That first interception when he threw it late to the left side, I believe the Bears were driving through a pick. That's a rookie mistake. And, also, the Colts were a bottom tier run defense, and I understand that, the Bears were not able to establish the run game, but I believe they had let up over 20 yards to the Packers in week 2. And I think the Bears didn't even have 60 yards rushing. That is insane. The Bears, moving forward for Caleb Williams, they need to establish an offensive line for him because if he keeps taking those, hits, because he's running for his life. I'm sorry, a lot of NFL greats aren't going to look good behind a very bad offensive line. So moving to the Chargers and Steelers, I had picked the Steelers to win that game. I know Justin Herbert had an ankle injury. I'm not 100% sure if he had left the game early, but Justin Fields, he's playing pretty well. I'm happy for him. Moving on to Seattle versus Miami, I picked Seattle just because, this is the first week without Tua and that, Seattle has just been playing well. Panthers versus Raiders, this was the other game where I picked, a team with no hesitation. And the Panthers had they heard me. They were listening to my podcast. Andy Dalton was looking like the Andy Dalton that torched the Ravens' playoff hopes. I think it was 2016 when he hit Tyler Boyd. And the Bills went to the playoffs that year. So, and ironically, I had picked up the Raiders defense in fantasy thinking that I didn't think the Panthers would look amazing, but I didn't think they would look – I think they would look different. And also, speaking of the Panthers, to discuss some of my thoughts on Bryce Young, because I feel like the mainstream media, and also from some of the TikToks that I've seen, a lot of people are saying that, Bryce Young is a bust, this and that. Of course, the offense is going to look better with a veteran quarterback at the helm. Of course. You already have put Bryce Young in a bad situation. You traded away basically the entire future of the franchise for the next few seasons. And his confidence is kind of bad right now, and like understandably so. And people are talking about, oh, they need to trade Bryce Young. I completely disagree. I completely disagree. If the Panthers trade Bryce Young, I do not think they will be doing their franchise a service because what they think Andy Dalton's the future. Like Andy Dalton, I'm pretty sure he's in his mid 30s, which for an athlete, that is, you're getting up there. Because I mean, especially for a sport like football, you don't play for as long up there. Like not everybody can be Tom Brady, not everybody can be LeBron James of longevity. But moving on to Rams versus the 49ers, I had picked the 49ers just because the Rams missing Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, but I was proven wrong again. The 49ers had lost that one. Lions versus Arizona, I had picked the Lions. I was not expecting it to be as close as it was, and I had heard that there was some controversy. Like I had saw, the TikToks that they had a pick six, the Cardinals did, before the 2-minute warning, but the play was blown dead because, the refs had ruled that the 2-minute warning. That's brutal. Also, my Ravens versus the Cowboys. I'm sure this is what most of you are probably looking to hear me talk about. I'm not going to lie to you. When the Ravens were up 21-6, whooping on the Cowboys, I'm not going to lie. I kind of was, sitting back in my seat getting comfortable. Start the second half, pretty much Ravens, punching the ball down their throat. They scored again. I'm thinking 28-6, like 9 minutes left. I'm thinking like, okay, cool. Then the Cowboys start playing. They start scoring some touchdowns. And the thing that upset me most, two things actually. Thing number one, the onside kick. Don't get me wrong, I understand as a football player, it is very, very difficult to recover an onside kick. And I'd imagine that is 10 times more difficult from my experience because that's an NFL kicker. So, that had upset me. But the other thing is the illegal touching, and I put up air quotes, when Dak was sacked, his knee was down, and, threw it to an offensive lineman. To this day, I had seen some tweets from a Ravens beat reporter. Basically, the refs were explaining the rule to John Harbaugh that basically it was a loophole in the rules. And I'm like, that is just words I will not say right now. But I just thought, dude, that should have been a safety. Even if it was, would it have made, say, the biggest difference in the game? I don't think so, because with the momentum that the Cowboys had late in the game, it still would have been a fight to the finish. But one of my friends had said it best, that this was a game that the Ravens had needed, because I'm sure everyone who watched that game saw, the stats that the Ravens have the most blown leads going into the fourth quarter, which the Ravens do not know how to finish a football game. But a game like this, I do agree, it was needed. It was needed. Lamar Jackson played great. He didn't really have to, do anything. The round game was amazing. Derrick Henry, this was a game where Ravens fans were hoping for from Derrick Henry, just because, Derrick Henry has been one of the best rushers since he's basically been in the league. So, if the Ravens keep handing him off the ball like that, Ravens will play, they'll go pretty far. And also, the offensive line played great. I had said that they had to take Micah Parsons out of the game for the Ravens to stand a chance. Lamar Jackson did not get sacked once. Yes, there were times where Micah Parsons was in the play, but he did not record a sack against Lamar Jackson. Moving on to the Sunday Night Football game, the Chiefs versus Falcons. I had picked the Chiefs, but the non-pass interference call that, the Chiefs, I think Kirk Cousins was throwing it to Kyle Pitts. I think that one was just another bunch of words that I will not say today. I truly and utterly believe all other 31 teams in the league, if that was Patrick Mahomes trying to throw it to Travis Kelce, and a defender is grabbing, basically not turning his head to look for the ball, and Travis Kelce's in front of him, that's going to be a flag 10 out of 10 times of the week. And, if it wasn't, the Swifties would be online. And I have nothing against Swifties. It's just there would be tons of negative press against a team who, if they did that against the Chiefs. And I just think that, it's kind of crazy that, when the Chiefs played the Bengals, I understand that when they played the Bengals, that was pass interference. He was there too early. But to get that call and then for it to not be called, that's just kind of crazy to me. So moving on to Jags versus Bills. The only reason why this game upset me is not because the Bills won, but because of fantasy football purposes. I'm 0-3 in both of my leagues. Yes, this past week, I did not play the right players. But man, I had lost so early into the game. It was upsetting. I was hoping the Jaguars would have put up a little bit more of a fight. And then the Commanders versus Bengals, which I was on the fence. I picked the Commanders, but I'd said I wouldn't be surprised. Jaden Daniels played really, really well. I hope he gets to continue all of that success, moving forward. Hopefully the Commanders can build off of it. So, really, enough about, week two. I'm not week two, week three. I apologize for the misspeak. We'll move on to, tonight's game, Cowboys versus Giants. The Cowboys, I understand that their run defense has not looked good. I watched when they played the Browns to open up the season, and then, when they played the Saints, and then when they played the Ravens, their run defense was non-existent. The Giants don't have Saquon. I would be very, very surprised if, I think it's Devin Singletary. And I'm not saying Devin Singletary is going to have a bad game, but if he, has like a generational performance, I'd be very surprised. Give me the Cowboys by 2 scores. I think it'll be interesting early, but then, the Cowboys pass rush will start, ruining the game for Daniel Jones. Bengals versus Panthers. Give me the Bengals. I'm going to go against the Panthers one more time, even though Andy Dalton's at the helm, because the Bengals, they desperately need a win. I feel like Jamar Chase is going to have a crazy game against the Panthers. Give me the Bengals. Saints versus Falcons. Do I think last week was kind of a fluke for the Saints? I mean, there are a lot of questions on if the Saints could, keep up their level of play that they had the first 2 weeks. I'm actually going to take the Falcons because, I watched when the Falcons played the Eagles on Monday night. I watched when they played the Chiefs, and their defense had played amazing. So I think the Falcons defense can, cause some fits for the Saints, specifically those safeties, Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons. I think they have one of, if not the best safety tandem in the NFL right now. And so I feel like, one of them, if not both of them, will get an interception. Moving on to Jags versus Texans. I'm picking the Texans. I feel like everyone on the Texans is going to come out angry. CJ Stroud's going to throw for 350 yards. I feel like that's going to happen. The Jags have just not looked good. They just have not. I feel like, they're not coming out intense. Like that first week, I understand they were up against Miami, but then I feel like after that, they just have lost who they were in the very first half of week 1. So give me the Texans. Broncos versus Jets, give me the Jets. I feel like the Jets defense is going to, win the game. I don't think they'll really have a lot of takeaways or sacks, but I don't think Bo Nix will, look amazing. I think it just he might be running for his life in this sort of game, but I don't think he'll have, any turnovers. If he does, I don't think he's going to have more than 2. So moving on to the Steelers versus Colts, I'm taking the Steelers because, Anthony Richardson in week 1, because of his performance against the Texans, he had a lot of hype. And I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it. It's just, I want to see Anthony Richardson, for longevity. And I understand that he's a great deep ball thrower, but short accuracy, that is not his game right now. So I'm going to pick the Steelers, because of TJ Watt, also just their defense. Their defense has just played amazing to start the year. I do think Anthony Richardson will have his best game as a passer, even though that he's not a rookie. I mean, he only played 4 games last season. Then he hurt his shoulder. And so this is basically a continuation of his rookie year. So I think he'll have his best game as a passer, but I don't think it'll be enough because I also do think that for the Steelers, this will be Justin Fields' best game as like a passer. I believe the Steelers will put up more than 30 points. So give me the Steelers. Eagles versus Bucks. I'm going to pick the Eagles. I'm going to pick the Eagles because I believe Saquon is going to have a great game. I'm not sure if, Devonta Smith is going to be able to play in this game. I don't know how bad his concussion was. I saw the video of it, but I don't know if he's off protocol as of right now or if it's, still up in the air. But I think the Eagles will win. I feel like Jalen Hurts is going to, play better. I feel like he's going to throw for, about at least 20 yards. He's going to get a couple of touchdowns, whether it's on the air or on the ground. Moving on to Vikings versus Packers, which I believe this will be one of the best games of the week, even whether or not Jordan Love does play, in which if I was the Packers, I would not play Jordan Love just because, you're playing well with Malik Willis right now. And if you rush Jordan Love back, it might hurt you for the long term. I would play Malik Willis until Jordan Love is 100% ready to go. And with Malik Willis, you have something on the offense that you can do it with Jordan Love, but not as well. And that's, just the option. But I think the Vikings and Packers, if there is an overtime game, I believe this will be the one. But I do believe the Vikings will get the win. I feel like I can see them just being down in the fourth quarter and, them battling back, just winning a game in overtime. So give me the Vikings. Rams versus Bears. One of the few games I wrote question marks on next to my piece of paper because, if this season, in the Bears' two losses, it to me feels like the Bears have shot themselves in the foot at times. And I'm mostly not even referring to the Bears players. I'm mostly referring to the offensive coordinator. Just because he has just not been doing a good job at calling plays in certain situations. He has not. Like when they played the Colts, and I believe they get down to the goal line, throwing quick passes, and then they're at like the 1 yard line, and they just run the ball like 3 times, which I understand. If you're on the 1 yard line, you should be able to pound it in. I get it. But I feel like in that moment, he abandoned what got them down there, which was not good. And also, Caleb Williams, I think he's going to be fine. I feel like against the Rams, he'll have more time, this year than he would have last year when Aaron Donald was still in the league. But if I had to pick, I'm going to pick the Bears because I believe the Bears are the home team. I mean, even if they have to go to LA, which, I'm not 100% sure of, I'm going to pick the Bears. I feel like, their defense is going to play well enough. I feel like they're going to get a pick six. I feel like the defense is going to make a play to either A, win them the game, or B, well, by win them the game, I more so mean like early, like maybe the Rams are driving and then, the Bears get a pick six or a fumble recovery. Or B, last drive of the game, the Rams need a touchdown to tie and or win the game. I feel like the Bears defense will show up. So I'll take the Bears. Pats versus 49ers. I'm taking the 49ers. 49ers had lost 2 straight, one to the Vikings, and then they lost against the Rams last week. I'm not 100% sure what the health of some of the teams is going to be like, but I still feel like they have enough pieces to beat the Patriots. Commanders versus the Cardinals. I think this one's going to be interesting because, the Cardinals, Kyler Murray, from what I got to see, he has been playing well this season. And also Jaden Daniels. Can his success, keep moving forward as a passer? I think the Commanders are going to win this game because I have a feeling that the Cardinals are not going to be able to stop the run defense, even though from what I've heard, through like halftime, like during NFL games, is that the Cardinals do not have the best secondary. But I'm going to take the Commanders with the run game. Next, Chiefs versus Chargers. Before I even pick who I think is going to win, all I have to say is this. I feel like as an NFL fan and also with some football experience under my belt, I understand I never played in the NFL. I was not a D1 college athlete, but I feel like as a defender, there's only so much you can do. And I understand that, they want to protect players, like not having hits in the head. I get it. But sometimes I feel like there's just nothing a defender can do. By that, I more so mean this. Yes, I understand in the Derwin James situation, there was probably something he could have done in that situation. By that, I mean, could have led more with the shoulder. But I just feel like across the NFL, I feel like flags are being called where it's like the defensive player, like he can lead with the shoulder. And I understand you don't want people to get hit in the head, but there's just only so much the defense can do. And it's part of the reason why I truly believe that if you want to include quarterback or don't want to, whatever, but the hardest position to play in the NFL to me has always been defensive back, specifically corner. I understand quarterbacks got the most pressure. They do. And I understand that they're the hardest position to play. But I'm more so speaking about, just the game is already against defensive players. If it wasn't, then I would undoubtedly say the quarterback is the hardest position to play. So going into that, Derwin James is not playing in this game. And I understand that the Chiefs have beaten the Chargers a lot the past couple of years. I'm going to take the Chiefs, especially since Derwin James is not going to be playing. If Travis Kelce is going to have a big game, I feel as if it is going to be, this week. But I also do believe that, the Chargers, they'll be able to do some things that'll give the Chiefs some fits. But give me the Chiefs. Browns versus Raiders. Both teams, kind of looking so like wishy-washy from a week-to-week basis. I'm going to pick the Browns. I feel like they're going to be able to get the run game going, and I have a feeling that, they're going to be able to neutralize Max Crosby better than the Raiders will be able to neutralize Myles Garrett. So give me the Browns. So now the second part of what you all are probably looking forward to. Bills versus my Ravens. This is still a must-win game for the Ravens to me. The Ravens are 1-2 right now, and Buffalo's coming to Baltimore. I feel as if this game can just be really, really good for the Ravens or really, really bad early. It all depends on how they come out. I'm going to pick the Ravens because I have a feeling that they're going to try to get Derrick Henry involved early, and I want to see more passes to, as a fan, keep throwing it to receivers. And I understand that John Harbaugh is not in the plans for the Ravens offense to throw it to Mark Andrews dominantly. Which, I mean, as a fantasy football player, and I have Mark Andrews, that's kind of annoying. But I mean, I get it. You do want to put your players in the best position to win. But I'm going to pick the Ravens, but I really see this game as 50-50. Out of any game so far, I feel like this is the most 50-50 game because the Bills have looked really, really good. The defense had looked really, really good also. So I'm going to pick the Ravens. I feel as if this game will go down to the final seconds of the game, regardless of who wins this game. Then going on to the Monday Night Football games, the Titans versus Miami and the Seahawks versus Lions. See, every fiber in my being wants to pick the Titans, but I also know that the Dolphins had signed Tyler Huntley off the Ravens practice squad, and I'm not 100% sure who will be playing quarterback for the Dolphins. But here's the thing. I feel like the Titans aren't going to be able to guard, the Dolphins' skill players for as long. I feel like it's going to be a very ground and pound game. I honestly don't know who I think will win. I wrote Miami down on my sheet of paper, but I think the Titans will win this game. I'm picking the Titans. If Tyler Huntley does play, I feel like he will be able to, run the offense better than I think Tim Boyle's on the Dolphins now. I'm not 100% sure, but I will pick the Titans. But I don't trust the offense for the Titans. I really don't. And then the final game of the week, Seahawks versus Lions. Ironically, I have a lot of fantasy football players in this matchup, but if I had to pick, the Lions are the home team. I see the Seahawks having this game being that they struggle a lot in compared to, their previous games. But the Seahawks defense is playing really, really well. But I feel like the Lions are going to be able to do what they do best, which is run the football, get the play action game going. And I feel like if the Lions get out to an early lead, I feel like that's in their favor. I'm going to pick the Lions because they're the home team. But the Seahawks they're going to put up a fight. It's going to be one of those, like, just really, really good football games. And, both teams have good defense. Both teams has good offense. I'm also just hoping for, I'll name my fantasy players, Amon-Ra, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. I believe those are the only three I have. I'm just hoping that those three have great games so that I can finally get my first fantasy football win under my belt this year because I'm 0-3. That is just very, very upsetting. But we've reached the end of this episode. I just want to say thank you so much for watching. I really enjoyed doing this. And also stay tuned for the next NFL episode because I have a surprise in the next episode. See ya. Bye-bye.